it's my, so I work for the Key Private Bank, and my entire job essentially is managing generational wealth. So it's making sure that folks that and families that have been fortunate enough to have a whole lot of money can pass that along to the next generation. And I often tell people that I work with that, well, we're going to have a very good relationship. It's really the next generation, and so your kids and grandkids that are really going to appreciate the things that we do. So it's difficult for people who are second, third, fourth generation, or even to Katie's point, it's difficult for people who grew up middle class, who are now upper class, to hang on to family wealth over the course of 1, 2, 3 generations. So imagine how hard it is for somebody coming from lower class who has somehow made it to hang on to that as well. I mean, you don't have to look any further than just looking at, countless stories of athletes who have, not even within one generation, but within a career, have blown most of their money. So it's there's a conversation that has to happen, and something that we do with a lot of our larger families is really sit down and talk to the next generation without talking about how much money they have. But we really want them to understand what it means to kind of carry on the legacy of that family, right? So if it's, the McLaughlin family, what does that mean to be a McLaughlin? What does that actually entail? And that's from philanthropy and how they live their life and how they spend their money. So it's an interesting conversation that we have. And again, it's difficult enough just to have that with people who are used to having money. It is an entirely different situation with people who it is brand new to them. And a lot of that goes to your next question, which is kind of good debt and bad debt, and what does that actually mean? I think we've all mentioned this over the course of this talk so far, kind of the needs and desires. And that's kind of what good debt and bad debt is. So essentially, good debt is debt that you're going to use to purchase something that's a need. Oftentimes it's something that's going to appreciate in value. It's going to go up in value. Not always, but usually. So a mortgage is a good example of that. If you use a mortgage to buy a home, that's good debt. More often than not always, but more often than not, the value of that home is going to go up over the course of your ownership of it. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the case. A car loan, if you need a car to get to work and you have to take on debt to get that car is not going to be worth more than when you bought it. It's going to be worth less, but that's still good debt because that's something that's going to help you get to your job and kind of move on in life. Student loans within reason are generally considered good debt. Education, unlike a home, a car, really anything else that you purchase, education is the absolute only thing that I can think of that once you have can never be taken away from you. Literally ever. You have it for life. That's generally good debt, depending on how you use it. Bad debt would be credit card bills. So, if you need to rack up a little bit of debt to buy groceries, okay, that's fine. But if you're racking up that debt because you spent the money that you should have spent on groceries on something that was a want and not a need, then that would be bad debt. When you use credit cards to purchase things that are simply a want, then the value of that thing goes down. That's bad debt. Not to mention, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but bad debt is much more expensive. In other words, you're going to be charged